So today I'm joined by John Rampton, who is the founder and CEO of Calendar, and he's also a regular contributor on Entrepreneur, Inc., Forbes, and other publications. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, John. So you're very active online, and of course you publish quite a bit on everything from marketing, entrepreneurship, to everything digital. So tell us a little bit about how you got started and what you enjoy the most.
You know, I've been an entrepreneur, so I'm the guy that, runs and kind of jumps off a cliff and finds a way to build a plane on the way down. So I'm that entrepreneur. I've been that entrepreneur my whole life. From a young kid, I was the guy with the lemonade stand selling lemonade with candy. I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've started a lot of different entrepreneurial endeavors, and some have been successful, some have epically failed, but along the way, I've learned a lot and met some really good people.
Beautiful. And I think, if you talk to Gary Vaynerchuk or anyone else that are really hardcore entrepreneurs, they'll say, if you've ever worked for a large corporation, then you're really not a true entrepreneur through and through. But it sounds like you are a thoroughbred, so to speak, in the sense of entrepreneurship. Tell us maybe like that one kind of, incredible experience where it's good or bad, where it's just so memorable that it's kind of cemented into your lifetime memory.
Probably one of mine is more of a failure moment. We had basically built this company up to be something amazing, and we got destroyed by a competitor essentially overnight. And I was the guy in a room, and I laid off around very close to 80 employees. I was the guy literally letting go of 80 people. And, entrepreneurship, everybody talks about the highs, but there's also a lot of lows, and then there's highs, then there's lows. It's similar to life. You're going to have a lot of highs, a lot of lows. But that moment stuck in me, letting everybody know, letting them know that, we were essentially going out of business. And, that was a very hard point, but everybody came up and gave me hugs and, thanked me for everything. And, that was a moment in my life where I was like, at the crappiest point in my life, and probably their crappiest in the last little bit, like we're still like friends. They still they understand and stuff like that. So that was a true moment of entrepreneurship that I look back on, and I'm like, I'm glad, not glad, but glad I went through that.
Well, thanks for sharing that, John. That's so important because what everybody else sees are the success, after 10, 20, 30, 40 years of chipping away. What they don't see are the ups and downs, and of course these emotional lows, and just the pressures that entrepreneurs take on a daily basis. And certainly being responsible for your family's life is one thing, but being responsible for the lives of these employees, that's a tremendous amount of pressure that you carry.
Yeah.
What do you do to get through those difficult times?
A lot of it is leaning on other friends, individuals, those people in your life. I lean a lot on my wife. I lean a lot on my family, friends. I read a lot. I read a lot of books of people who have been through similar things. I've read similar, you read of all these CEOs that are doing amazing jobs and changing the world in different ways. The Bill Gates of the world that are impacting the world in far ways than most people do. And you don't read about some of their failures and some of their, times when they dealt with depression. I read books on that, how they got through that, what they did. And that gives me motivation and brings me like a little peace in my mind. For example, when I had that, I read about a time when Bill Gates was like all out of money, all doing this, like at the end of his rope. And like he reached out to a friend, and that friend made an introduction to somebody else, like got Microsoft back going, and now they are what they are today. I read a job on about Steve Jobs, his biography on this, and how, they were all out of money, and, he had to go, he was working a little side job to pay bills for Apple. And, then when he got fired from Apple, little things like that, like there's no like perfect and paved road for anybody out there. So, if you guys are watching this, like it's not all roses. Doesn't matter what field you're in. If you're an entrepreneur, if you work at a company, it's never roses, but they're, push through it and lean a lot on those amazing people around you.
Yeah, that is tremendous advice. And certainly That's the kind of inspiration that I think all of us at any given point, whether we're employed or entrepreneurs, is to be able to look to those great stories where they've persevered through some difficult times. And frankly, if you haven't gone through those failures, you really aren't going to reach those successes, and that's the truth of it. Let's talk a little bit about your company calendar. Tell us about what that is and where you are at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, Calendar, we're a calendar app. We're trying to help people be much more productive in their lives. I originally started Calendar because I missed a very important meeting / event in my life. It was my daughter, one of her first day of school, and I missed that day. And, my wife, it was on my personal calendar. It wasn't on my business calendar. Those, the personal life, the business life, the side hustle, they don't really mix. So I built a solution that brings all your calendars into one place, makes you more productive, gives you analytics on how you're spending your time, etc. So my goal is just to make the world a better place, keep you organized, and make you a lot more into the person you're meant to be.
So it sounds like it's tracking your usage and who you're spending time with and so forth.
Yep.
In addition to those feature set, how does it compare with Calendly or some of the more true AI assistant-based calendar functionalities? Yeah,
I mean, we perform a lot of the same similar functions. Our goal, again, is more taking you and putting everything in one place. I mean, we have the easy scheduling that like a Calendly does, or the abilities that some other features have. Like if you want it to, you can, have your own meeting link and schedule meetings very easily. If you want it to, it will call into every single one of your meetings, record and transcribe the entire meeting, put that back into the calendar invite for every person involved. If you want it, it will keep track. You can tag 10 different people in your company, and it will show you only the times that work for each one of you. So similar functions, but we kind of tacked on like just things that make me a better person. No more 50 emails back and forth. No more this, no more that. So.
Now, I was one of the early users of X.AI and some of the
great product.
And over the I guess it's been a couple of years or so, I've actually stopped using it because its machine learning just wasn't good enough, and it was starting to frustrate the other side that was actually trying to schedule meetings with me. So
it's a good I would say it's a really amazing product. There's a couple AI assistants out there that I feel they're amazing at certain things. Like X.AI is amazing at a certain specific subset of scheduling meetings. For example, it's very, very good scheduling meetings for sales calls, or scheduling doing this or doing that. General AI is getting better, but it's not quite right there. Where we want to go with Calendar is much more into a similar type of space where we're going through analyzing emails, doing that, responding, but I want to know you much more as a person, know who you interact with, assigning contacts, like, hey, here's this contact, here's how important it is to your life. Will that supersede this meeting? If so, can I just automatically reschedule this meeting? We want to get a lot more into that space, but the technology is just not there. Also, the understanding of what I'm giving away for privacy for apps like that, you just need to give away a lot more privacy of yourself for those things to make sense, and people mostly are not willing to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Also, it costs a lot of money to build that type of tech. So, people aren't willing to pay $1,000 a month for a full AI assistant that does everything of your scheduling, calendar, and makes you 100% more optimized. People just aren't willing to pay, $1,000 a month, which it takes that much computing and processing power to be able to make a profitable company.
Yeah, you're right on so many fronts. In terms of assigning weights to individuals and who is more important. So if you have a conflicting meeting, who do you actually assign more weight to, and therefore they get the priority in terms of that slot? That's a very interesting angle. And is that something that's user driven in terms of they having to assign some sort of a weight to it, or is it the frequency? And of course, you're not actually having any visibility into the meeting content itself. in terms of what actually takes place and whether it achieved a certain result. So how are you to get those kind of intelligence that you're talking about?
So we actually do have, when you're like, what happened in the meeting and what happened and what went on, since we're actually recording and transcribing the meeting, we can actually tell you what happened in the past with that person and assign importance to that person. So we're not there yet. Again, this is what we're building right now. We're building more of that engine to get that going. But since we analyze that, we analyze your emails, we analyze the behavior of a person and your interactions with that person, how much you talk. We actually analyze the voice intonation. So if you're talking more engaging, your score will go up with that person. If you're just saying, like, okay, yeah, yeah, those are definitely negative signs that it's not like the best connection in the whole world. Also, your interactions back and forth with a person, our goal is to start scoring that information to tell you how influential that, along with other metrics like who are they, what company do they work at, how influential, how many employees does that company have, to sort of score individuals. You can do that manually, but we want to get to a point where you never have to do that. And we take, again, for example, my wife would not be influential. She doesn't work at a major company. She hasn't done this, she hasn't done that, but she'd be 1,000 times more influential in my book because we have that daily conversation. We have tons of emails, tons of invites, tons of this. So she would take priority over that. So again, that scoring system we're getting better at. It's like behind the scenes, it's not released, but that's what we're building towards, is building that.
Okay, so that really helps a lot, John. So thank you for that. So the fact that you're actually recording the transcription and you're doing text-to-speech analysis and speech-to-text means that now you can layer in effective computing, sentiment analysis, and then you can actually parse out those key metadata and keywords, as well as the duration. And you're talking about voice analysis, and you're getting into the cadence, into intonation, the feelings. And so the more I kind of listen and understand, it sounds like it would be a beautiful bolt-on to like a CRM system. So it's a position target for Salesforce.com, the usual cloud ERP types of players that are looking to automate not just the transcription aspects, but how was that prospect call? How was that sales call? How was that engagement with the customer? And, not only it eventually summarizes the key points and the action steps, but what was the actual interaction and what was the perception by the other person, which I think is really super important. So as you get to learn some of these things and apply more advanced techniques and algorithms, I think I see a lot of potential, but the key is the data set. Once you have the data set, you can layer in the various machine learning, deep learning aspects and start to get, real deep insights.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going for. That's what we're trying to do.
Innovating with Scott Amyx podcast, the question that we always ask is, what is the biggest failure? And again, I know you shared about having to lay off, but to me, that's not exactly a failure per se, but a failure from your point of view. What was that? And what did you learn from that?
I mean, my biggest failure was ultimately not taking a risk on myself sooner. When I was younger, I graduated from college, so I went to the University of Utah, graduated high school, took the steps. By the way, any entrepreneurs or business owners doing this, or younger, people listening to this, I highly recommend education. Education is one of those things I'm a big fan of. I went to school, I graduated with a degree, and I did that. But after I did that, I joined the business world. I went and got a job at a company, and I worked there, and I worked at another job. And during that job, I went to my boss, and I've been an entrepreneur at heart my entire life. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, I want to work on my own things at the same time. So would it be okay if I just come into work a little bit earlier? So I came into work every single day at 5:30 and left at 2:30. And then I worked on my own stuff at 2:30. But it took me 2 years to leave my job. And during that time, when I ultimately left, I was making 2 times outside my work than inside my work. So when I think of my biggest failure per se, or my biggest thing that I struggled with was leaving my job and taking that risk and then really investing in myself. Had I invested in myself a lot earlier from the perspective of not just investing, but believing in myself, I feel I would have been a much better entrepreneur, much better business leader, because I would have not wasted that additional 1 or 2 years. And where I was a year ago compared to where I am now is astronomically better, and I'm doing better in every aspect of my life. So it would have just given me a year ahead. So, I mean, that would be my advice to every person listening or watching this. Really take it, invest in yourself, take chances in yourself, believe in yourself, because you'd be surprised at the things that you can do once you make that change.
Super. That is really valuable advice for everyone that's listening. John, for those that are interested in your work, your company, as well as some of the things that you write about, how can people follow you and your work?
Yeah, so I write for Entrepreneur Magazine and a couple other places, just John Rampton. I'm also johnrampton.com. You can find me there. You can connect with me there. I'm very active on social media, on Twitter, and a few other social networks. So feel free to reach out to me, contact me there. I'm active. I like responding. Try and say something like, "Hey, I saw you in this podcast," or "Hey, this," so it doesn't look spammy. But feel free to contact me. I really try and message people back or talk with people.
Terrific.
And happy to help. Like I genuinely love helping people. So if you're working on a project, if you're working on something, like message me. I'll take a look at it. I'll try and help you out.
Terrific. So today I've been joined by John Rampton, founder and CEO of Calendar, and also contributor on Entrepreneur and other publications.